Chris Cranston here from PetAbility Podcast. Today we're going to be reviewing passive range of motion for the front limb. It's always better to see pictures and video because it's hard to explain with words. So if you haven't listened to the podcast segment, please tune in, but this is also a great tutorial. I'm going to start here at Julep's shoulder blade. So I have my hands on each side of it and I'm going to move it in all directions. It's kind of nice to think about the shoulder blade as sitting on the face of a clock, and you want to be able to move the shoulder blade in all directions, hitting all the numbers of that clock. If the tissue is healthy, then it should not be restricted in any direction. So for example, as I push towards her head, that would be 12 o'clock. If I slide down towards her rear end, that's 6 o'clock. Toward her foot might be 9 o'clock, and back toward me 3 o'clock. Now for a lot of our athletes and older pets, emphasizing this direction, going toward the dog's paw, foot, is probably the most important because they tend to hold a lot of tension at the top, and this is a nice release, and you can see that Julep thinks this feels pretty good. So I'm capturing this angle of the shoulder blade, being careful not to press on the spine, and gliding down. My bottom hand here is just supporting her limb, and then just pushing gently down. I can hold it there for a little bit more of a stretch, but range of motion is rhythmic, slow, and methodical. So this is how you would do passive range of motion for the dog's carpus or wrist joint. So note I'm stabilizing the segment closer to the dog's body and moving the segment farther away from the dog's body. And you do it slowly and rhythmically. And most dogs can get their paw pads pretty close to that forearm segment. And in Julep's case, she can. Make sure you also go completely straight, but most of the time we're working on improving the bending at this joint. So now I'm moving up to Julep's elbow and straightening and bending. So again, stabilizing the segment that's closest to her shoulder. I've got to get my hands out of the way as I bend her elbow because she has great range of motion, and these two segments of her forelimb or arm can fully approximate. So if I kept my hands there, I wouldn't be able to get it fully bending. So I have to kind of scoot that out of the way. And then the opposite way, kind of using a little fulcrum here at the elbow and fully straightening that segment. So now we moved up to the shoulder. This is shoulder flexion, and this is shoulder extension. So my hand is now resting on her shoulder blade, kind of the side of her shoulder girdle here, stabilizing just a little bit to give her some solace there, but allowing the shoulder blade to move underneath my hand, fully straightening by pressing the tip of the elbow, and then bringing it back along her rib cage. Now I would caution you, don't hyperextend here and bring it way up over the ribs, just back to neutral alongside her ribs. So I'll do a full motion here, extension and flexion. Once you've gotten your dog relaxed and been able to focus on each joint individually, sometimes it's kind of nice to finish up by putting it all together. So in Julep's case, I'm going to do a little dance with my hands, fully straighten her limb, extending all of the joints, and then flexing each joint. So this is articulating the shoulder blade as it glides on the rib cage. It's flexing the shoulder joint or glenohumeral joint itself. It's straightening each joint. Now we're flexing the elbow and the wrist, everything simultaneously. So it's a nice little dance where you can get everything at the same time. I'm going to emphasize a little bit more shoulder extension here because I know Julep has it. So now I'm going to push up towards her head, and that's what normal range of motion looks like.